welcome to your award-winning The Reasons I'm Broke podcast, bringing you the reasons we're broke through news and headlines ranging from comics, movies, TV, video games, and more. I'm Daniel, and today we're going through sector number 457 as we continue the wish list, the lofty wish list I have of guests, influencers to me that I know have definitely shaped out not only this podcast, but some of the things that I've helped participate in online, people that I look up to inspirationally for the Snyder Cut movement and for movie freedom in general, having the artists do what they need to do. And one of the guys on the list here is Syl from SYLABDUL.com, SYLABDUL Inc. He was on the list here because anytime that there is and he just did it yesterday, there's breaking news with, for example, right now, AT&T Discovery. He is live streaming. He has members from the movement. Just had Paula on as well, who was on the Snyder Cut roundtables. Heard her on the podcast as well. And it is a pleasure to have Syl on The Reasons I'm Broke. Thank you so much for agreeing to do this episode today.
Awesome. No, it's my pleasure. Definitely. I was looking forward to this.
It is something that we've been sort of planning for a few months. And then we were planning on doing this before the Snyder Cut release, but then the Snyder Cut released and we were all wound up in that. And now it's like, all right, we got Army of the Dead. It's a little bit, the waters have calmed a little bit on the Snyder Cut movement side, but definitely not on the corporate side of things.
Yeah, definitely. It's definitely given me a lot to talk about still. I was preparing to still be breaking down the Snyder Cut right now, but all the corporate behind the scenes stuff kind of took front page. So I've been busy with that.
It really did. Before we go into the week's news and headlines, if you could tell the Brokehead Core what your channel is about and what you've been working on this week.
Yeah, definitely. So SYLABDUL Inc. On YouTube, and also it can be reached on Twitch, but I always say it's hardcore DC universe. We follow anything Zack Snyder does as well. So outside DC, if need be, anytime Warner Brothers messes up, we talk about that, which has been frequent. So this week, like Daniel said, I touched on the merger, the huge merger of AT&T and Discovery, and the fallout from that. So that's a developing story. So like I said, follow me on those links, and whenever there's an update, we'll break it down.
Fantastic. And it'll be great having that insight from you as we reach that last headline, which will be about AT&T Discovery and, of course, Zack Snyder's Army of the Dead. But otherwise, let's jump into this week's news. Kicking things off with the Howard Stern Show, of all things. In an interview with Emily Blunt, she was asked if superhero movies were, quote, beneath her, end quote. And she had this to say, quote, "It would have been amazing to play Black Widow, but I don't know if superheroes are for me. They're not up my alley. I think it's been exhausted. We are inundated. It's not that it's only the movies, it's all the TV shows as well," end quote. And this was something that I saw, for example, Dr. Meme Hatton ran with it. It's another recruitment for Martin Scorsese, and some of the MCU guys were getting a little upset about it. What do you think about Emily Blunt kind of moving away from that wish to now be involved in these superhero films?
Yeah, I take it like the more I see quotes from actors, creators, directors, I don't believe anything. Actor, director, I think it's all public negotiation. I think she wants more money for something. I don't know what it's for. So yeah, I look at that and I'm like, okay, let's see what happens like in a couple months.
So you think someone like the more recent guy was Mickey Rourke, right? And he had talked about how the Marvel movies were crap. That was his quote, like crap. And do you think that maybe he was saying it because he's probably not going to be involved in any MCU movies? Do you think there was some bitterness there over not being included in future projects, or so you think it's more of a negotiation thing and not so much actors kind of being over this current genre?
Well, Mickey Rourke, I believe him. So case by case thing, right? So Mickey Rourke, I think his character was screwed over, in that whatever that universe was shaping up at that time. Similar to Dave Bautista, he came out recently saying they underused his character and what he was looking at the background of Drax. There's a few actors that is ballsy enough to kind of call him out. I don't think Emily Blunt is one of them, but but yeah, so it's a case by case thing.
It is entertaining to me still, just for the memes, just for the memes, especially. It's something I have fun with. But yesterday, when at the time we're recording it, this week there was kind of a slew of DC news, a lot of which I wasn't too interested in. There was some stuff on the comic side. I work at a comic shop, and I'll handle that when the books actually get solicited. There were a couple of projects, too, that were announced, but I mainly put some highlights here on things that I know that we can discuss and things that I've discussed on the show. And one of these ongoing projects is the Batgirl film, which is going to have the frequent collaborators of Adil El Arbi and Bilal Fallah, who directed Bad Boys for Life. They've signed on for the Batgirl film. According to The Hollywood Reporter, the film is expected to premiere on HBO Max, which I thought was interesting. Do you think that this is not going to have that theatrical type of spectacle because of that?
Well, so I'm split on this, right? Because we just went through this whole day and date release, simultaneous HBO Max releases with theaters at the same time, and I don't think that landed all the way. I think with the experience, so it is a little odd to me that they're getting these, Hollywood directors, a Hollywood writer, like a full, creative team that does theatrical, but they're saying, hey, they're straight to HBO Max. So I think, yeah, it's going to lose a little punch. I really do believe that. I'm kind of second guessing this strategy, just initially, yeah.
If they had said and committed to it's going to be 2021 as well, when we're going to do the day one HBO and theatrical release, then I wouldn't be as worried about this project because at this point I'd be like, well, it's probably going to also premiere in theaters and not a big deal. But if this is an HBO Max original or something that they're only going to have as a strategy for the streaming service, then I think I agree with you too. It's not going to have that budget that you would get out of a Hollywood film. And some would say that maybe something like Batgirl wouldn't need something like that. But honestly, that's kind of been the strategy for a lot of these movies like Birds of Prey and Shazam, where they don't look like they were expensive to make. And I think Batgirl is going to be another one of those where it doesn't look like it's going to really be that pricey of a thing, especially with a street level hero like Batgirl.
Yeah, that's the thing is the approach that they're describing. Maybe this would have been better as a series, and maybe Warner's they need to kind of see what works out there, and it's like though we may some people may have kind of some of the Disney Plus stuff may not have landed with everyone, but just the strategy of it, do the series low budget. Then if there's a popular character, then go ahead and do a movie, but just kind of shoving this all into a film straight to HBO Max. It's just I'm just kind of second guessing this just a little bit.
Do you think it'll take place in the current continuity of DCEU?
What is the current continuity?
I guess it's a multiverse, right?
So yeah, right, exactly, multiverse, quote unquote. I mean, that's up in the air. I haven't heard anything definitive either way. There's rumors that it's supposed to connect to Michael Keaton's world, which we haven't seen the new, Michael Keaton's world. And then some is saying it's just a Elseworld. So I'm leaning more towards a one-off type of story till I hear anything differently.
Currently, Bumblebee writer Christina Hodson has already finished the script for the project, and a quote from producer Kristen Burr said, quote, "With Batgirl, we hope to take the audience on a fun ride and see a different side of Gotham. Christina's script is crackling with spirit. Adil and Bilal have an excited and joyous energy which is infectious, making them the perfect filmmakers for this Bat project," end quote. When I see the words fun, man, I don't know. I'm already, I'm saying pass. If you were to ask me tomorrow, you can see this tomorrow, I'll say I'm all right. It doesn't seem like
I'm on your boat too, Daniel. It's like nothing about this announcement excited me. I mean, Bat anything usually excites me,
Mhm.
but you get the Bad Boys for Life director, try to do a fun movie with Batgirl. I'm not sold. And Christina Hodgson, who, you know, did Birds of Prey, and I think it took her up until before the shoot of the Flash film to finish that script. So I don't have too much confidence in her either as a writer. So
Mm-mm.
this is all over the place. Maybe it's good as going straight to HBO Max to save us, more drama.
Right. I mean, just to kind of close that part out, I don't think we're the target audience. Definitely not the Snyder supporters. I don't think that we're in mind at all when they're making this project. Probably Birds of Prey, as you mentioned, maybe a younger audience. I don't know if this will be a PG-13 or R, whatever they want to rate it on HBO Max, but I don't think it's for us, honestly.
I agree with you.
This big upfront announcement this week, though, from WarnerMedia, and this comes like a day or two after the Discovery merger that they had talked about. And I don't even know if this was all a part of, I mean, obviously this was all planned already, but I'm curious to know if there would have been some changes had the merger been sooner, or at least that announcement. But one of the things that they talked about is an all-new animated series by Warner Brothers Animation, Bad Robot Productions, and Sixth and Idaho. It's going to be executive produced by Bruce Timm, the great legendary Bruce Timm, J.J. Abrams, and Matt Reeves. And it's also going to have HBO Max and Cartoon Network connection. So that's probably where it's going to air. It's currently titled Batman the Caped Crusader. A lot of the Brokehead Core members sent this over my way because they know I'm a massive Batman the Animated Series fan. That's what hooked me in as a DC fan for life. They got me at an early age, and since then, I expanded from the Bat universe to the rest of the DC universe, and that's kind of how I became a DC Comics guy. So they were like, "Oh, what do you think about this?" And the one thing that I was apprehensive about, and I straight up said it on Discord, I'm like, if Matt Reeves is involved, like, is this part of the Battinson universe or is it not? And if it is, then I have no interest in it. But if this is what that Batman the Animated Series season 4 announcement that was rumored a couple of months back is, or are we actually going to get season 4 of Batman the Animated Series, and I'm going to wait for that? I think it's more of a wait and see, but why do you think someone like Matt Reeves is attached to an animated project like this, especially when you already have Bruce Timm?
Yeah, that's what threw me off is, I mean, I'm just like you, Batman the Animated Series, that's what got me into the DC world, right? So this is sacred ground to me, right? So all you need was Bruce Timm to get
Yeah.
this done. Why are these other guys along for the ride here? So that's the only thing that like worries me about that. Having Bruce Timm attached to it calms me down a little bit just to wait and see what they got. I know it's based off like the 1939 Batman look and style. I'm surprised that Matt Reeves, I guess his production company is going to be attached to this. So maybe this is more of just like part of his production deal to kind of leech on to Batman projects, is what it's looking like.
Did you see that Bruce Timm animated short that celebrated the 75 years of Batman a couple of years back that was basically this type of iteration of Batman, the 1930s one?
You just reminded me of that. Yes, I did.
If it's a spinoff of that, then I'm all in because I know then it has nothing to do with the Battinson universe. And that thing was amazing. It was like this pulp take on Batman where it's sort of sci-fi horror a little bit.
Yeah. Now that you remind me of that, I actually want to look that back up and check that out because if it's on that type of style, which again I trust Bruce Timm, I trust him with DC animation. That is his thing. I do not think this has anything to do with the Pattinson universe. So as long as they just kind of keep reassuring me of that, hopefully it's not too many mystery boxes with J.J. Abrams, and then we'll see what happens with this.
Who do you hope they get to voice Batman in this project?
So obviously, I'll say Kevin Conroy, right? Obviously, I'll say that. Now, if he's priced out of this budget or whatever, some people have suggested the Batman who voiced in the Harley Quinn animated series. I forget his name, but I thought he did a good job with Batman as well. Or Jensen Ackles, if it's a younger Batman. I think he's going to do good in the Long Halloween animated films, part 1 and 2. So those are my choices. Kevin Conroy first, obviously.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's one of those guys where you work the budget around that guy. You're like, okay, how much are you going to agree to do this season of? All right, that much. All right, cool. So this is what we have to work with, and if we don't do this, then the series does not happen. Anytime, anytime, like my wife and I would see a Batman project where Kevin Conroy was not the voice of, we'd be like, oh, was he sick? What happened? We would just assume that something happened there. He wasn't available.
Some of those DC animated movies, like I was shocked. Like every time I started watching them, like the Batman versus Robin and the Son of Batman. I watch all of them, right? And you hear the voice, I'm like, that's not Kevin Conroy.
That's not Batman.
It's like that's not Batman. Who's this imitation? Batman. Hopefully, man. They haven't announced, any voice actors yet. I don't believe so. There's still hope.
There is. The other big thing, and I was surprised at how negatively this was spun by people like IGN. Well, maybe it didn't surprise me that IGN took this take, but how people were handling it. Now, HBO Max announced an ad-supported tier that's priced at $9.99 a month. They committed to being the lightest ad load among all ad-supported streamers. It will exclude the same-day premiere films that debut in theaters and on HBO Max throughout 2021, so that part was on there. And then also that they are scheduled to launch in 39 countries across Latin America and the Caribbean at the end of June. And also the HBO service, or the I think it's HBO Go was what it was before, and the ones that's just the HBO app, is going to be branded or upgraded to HBO Max later this year in Europe. So that's a huge plus for a worldwide launch, which personally I think that this should have all been a simultaneous thing just to really make it huge. But I don't know if they wanted to take advantage of everyone being at home last year. But everyone was kind of reacting strongly against that tier pricing of like, oh, they're adding ads now. It was almost as if it wasn't really made clear enough, I guess, that there's the standard service is still there. You can still pay that one with no ads. Basically, what you have now is still there. And this is just another option for newer subscribers that don't want to pay that higher pricing. But from all the comments I was seeing online was $10 and I still have to see ads. So it's kind of like the how expensive HBO Max is as a whole, even though I think it's on par now with a lot of these other competitors, especially since Netflix recently just raised their price up again. I don't know. Like, to me, I was kind of surprised at how negatively people were taking this.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, I mean, HBO Max, it comes with the DC stigma, I think, on social media. So people finding, ways to, criticize it. I mean, I think first with the $9.99, this is actually one of the worst kept secrets, actually, because I actually put out talked about some articles about a month ago that this price was floating around. So I expected this $9.99. It's just like Hulu in a sense. Hulu has Hulu with ads. That's close to $10 itself. So I think it was much ado about nothing as far as social media complaining about this. But I think too the announcement was fumbled in a sense because it came strictly through this WarnerMedia Upfront situation, right? So I just think they didn't really get the right messaging out. You kind of just heard pieces of it if you didn't see the press release, right? So, but once I saw the full announcement, I was like, okay, this makes sense. Like you said, with the whole Netflix angle, I'm paying $18 a month for Netflix. I do the forecast Netflix.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think HBO Max is right where it needs to be with this merger. We'll talk about that later with Discovery. HBO Max, it's going to be whatever it's going to be called. It's in that top 3 now. So it's trying to challenge Netflix with programming, and, the pricing is comparable. So I have no problems with this. I'm going to keep the regular HBO Max, but I have no problem with the pricing.
Do you think that the lower tier is actually going to be good for their subscriber numbers, or do you think most people are just going to jump straight into, actually that would even help too, if they're like, for a couple dollars more, I can just get the ad-free version and get the same day premieres. Do you think that cheaper price point is going to help some?
Yeah, I think this is smart business, because one of the first criticisms was the, $15 a month starting off. I think with them trying to push this for the rest of the year, and, as it's branching out at the same time in other countries, I think this is smart, to kind of take that again, that stigma of high price away. Like, okay, under $10, I can get all this HBO program, and there's tons of stuff on HBO Max now. So I think hopefully people realize that like it's you're getting a huge library, and then later this year, oh, I want to see Dune or The Matrix, at home, pay $5 more, and so I think it's a good strategy actually.
The value is absolutely there. It's kind of amazing how great the service has grown, I think, in that, because that same, and I know there was a lot of issues with directors and creatives over the same day release thing, but as a consumer, I love that. I am a theater goer, and people have heard here that I'll go see it first in theaters. I just did it for Army of the Dead. I'll see it in theaters, get my experience there, and then I'll watch it again when I'm at home. And I've been doing the same thing with HBO Max's movies. I recently did it for Godzilla vs. Kong. I only saw it again because I didn't like that movie, but I saw it again because I knew I needed to talk about it here. But it was the convenience of like, all right, now I can watch this again. The value is really there. Do you think that this WarnerMedia Upfront would have been changed at all if we knew about the merger, let's say a month ahead of time? Like, I know Jason Kyler was there, and do you think any of that would have changed otherwise?
Yeah, that's a good question because with the story of the merger, and like I said, I know we'll get further into that as well. But a lot of the execs in Warner Media didn't know about the merger that was coming, so they literally found out about it, a day before this event. So I think it would have been very different if we found out about the merger a month ago. I just have a feeling that things would have been a little altered. I think all this was in the can, and so they went ahead and announced whatever they need to announce. Maybe there are some announcements we did not get that because they just found out about the merger. So I do believe this was affected, but I think it would have been a totally different program if they had enough time to prepare after hearing about the merger.
Well, let's go right into the merger, there were a lot of questions on it on the comic side at the comic shop. There were some readers asking, what does this mean for the book? So AT&T has agreed to spin off its media operations in a deal with Discovery Inc. that will create a new entertainment company, merging assets ranging from CNN, HBO, HGTV, and the Food Network. As of this recording, we don't know what the name of that company is yet. But this will help AT&T prioritize its broadband business. It's going to pay down its huge debt load. We have a quote here from Discovery CEO David Zaslav, a name that we've all been memorizing this week. He said, quote, AT&T would receive $43 billion subject to adjustment in a combination of cash, debt securities, and WarnerMedia's retention of certain debt. And he also went on that end quote. He also went on to say that the new media company is going to have it's going to start off with $55 billion in debt, so it's taken on a lot of that from AT&T. And the portfolio that is going to make up Discovery and Warner will include 6 of the top-rated 8 channels on cable in key advertiser demographics, which include CNN, TNT, TBS, ID, HGTV, and the Food Network, which could give the company more leverage in negotiating deals with ad buyers. So what's your take on all of this, which to me came out of left field?
Yeah, that's what Jason Keelar said, right? So it's definitely, I think this is a good deal for both sides. There was a lot of spin, the day that this news came out. Well, it was rumored, I guess at the time of this recording, it was rumored Sunday. That it came out the next day, and I thought it was a good deal. I thought AT&T basically did a smart thing, realizing that Warner Media was not cutting it with their operations. As far as prioritizing growing content for the future across the entire platform, HBO Max has great content, and that's true. But lately, it's all been about the new stuff. Has been about Max originals, HBO originals, and I didn't see them really just pushing forward. There's so much potential with HBO Max. It's a great start. So I thought this deal was good where John Stankey of AT&T says, let's get a proven, streaming guy in here, David Zaslav, get him in here and his team, and y'all babysit Warner Media basically. And then John Stankey was like, I'm gonna go and worry about my phones and broadband and 5G. So
Hmm.
that's literally what this deal was. Get a proven person in there, and then you mentioned the 43 billion in cash that AT&T gets for this. This is what they've been looking for this past year since the pandemic. They want to get this debt down as fast as possible. They took a huge significant chunk out of it with this deal. So just they want the deal is great for them. It's great for their shareholders. Maybe it pisses off people who don't like seeing monopoly, because this is a fledgling powerhouse now. Once this all gets together, so great deal. Discovery wins. If you're a shareholder of Discovery, you won the year because your stocks went up like crazy. So like I said, I think it's smart all around. It's going to be a lot of ramifications inside Warner Media after this, and hey, maybe we'll get some clear cut plans as far as what they want to do specifically with a DC going forward. So we needed a shakeup like this, but we'll see how it benefits us going forward. But business wise, this was a good thing.
So you had mentioned that HBO Max and Warner in general wasn't performing quite to where AT&T was expecting or where they wanted it maybe. I know Jason had talked about how HBO Max's service is 2 years ahead of expectations. Like their subscription numbers are strong, and they're ahead of schedule. Were his words. And do you think this is more outside of HBO Max, but instead Warner in general?
That's a good question. Yeah, I mean, it has a lot to do as far as with across the board. So the current regime that's about to be, moved out in a sense, they were kind of sitting on trying to connect TV and streaming, and then we'll get this Flash movie and connect stuff, and then they were taking off all the directors like Nolan and James Gunn, and so it's like, let's get back to just letting people create. Let's not try to dictate this this TV movie streaming multi-unit, whatever they was talking about doing. I have no idea, but it's DOA at this point. So I think this is going to jumpstart them. Just let's put money into creators and let them create, and that includes a Zack Snyder if you want to, bring him back in the building, because they really was sitting on pause. Now people say it's because of pandemic, but I look at these other companies. I look at Disney. They announced 10 different shows to their investors for Star Wars, right? Coming up. They're still creating. You look at Warner Media, I don't know what their plans is going to be. We were waiting for this next slate to come out, and that just didn't look good long term, for their business. So this is really, to really jumpstart across the board. Maybe get rid of some crappy CW shows in the process. It's like it's we're going all over with this. And DC Animation, which I was surprised they actually had plans in the can for that. I was waiting to hear something about DC Animation, but it seems like that's the one thing they was getting together in this silence. But I hope this jumpstarts everything.
And just for clarity, because I know this did come up a lot on online and in person, this doesn't mean that AT&T no longer owns, or that they completely carved out Warner Media from their company. They own a majority. I think it was 71%, right, of this new company, whatever it ends up being, and then the rest is owned by Discovery.
Yeah, exactly. Basically, Discovery just bought in to the Warner Media business. So, like you said, 71% is what AT&T still owns. So John Stankey is still, over this, whatever this new company is going to be. We joke that it's a Discovery Bros. It's a new but so they still have the majority, and then like I said, Discovery, they come in 30%. David Zaslav is signed through 2027, so he has like 5 years, him and his regime to show some profit. It's all about money now, going forward.
Since he is on until 2027, does this, one of the other things that were coming up, and maybe we don't know the answer to this, is this new company going to absorb all of these streaming things that are owned between Discovery and AT&T? And is that going to be a new streaming platform, or do you think they're going to use what's currently going on, like HBO Max, and inject the Discovery brand or the shows onto that service?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, as of the time of them announcing it, Zaslav wasn't. He was non-committal. either way. He said he liked how Bob Iger did the Disney Plus and Hulu kind of like separate, so he's playing with both ideas. I think once we get the name of this, whatever this new company is going to be, maybe this will give us an idea like, okay, they're going to do one streaming platform. I think it will be pretty dope to see, Discovery totally merged, folded into HBO Max. I think that would be a wild app, and hopefully they go that route. But yeah, as of now, they haven't decided.
And that was one of the things that they kept talking about on this in this event of they're here to play. Like they want to be not number 3, they want to be the number 1 streaming service. And I know they're saying that for the shareholders, but by them committing to, we're going to put, I think he said 20 billion a year into new content. Currently Netflix, they were saying, puts in about 17 billion a year. So they're putting in a lot of money into this new company, into this content. So I think it is going to be more on what you were saying of put in the Discovery streaming service and HBO Max into either one or the other or into this new company, but that they are going to really be and cement themselves as this is going to be the number 1, or they're aiming to be the number 1 streaming service out there. And they're not playing around with, let's just try to, get these subscribers. No, they're really injecting a lot of money into this project.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was exciting watching. I watched about 5 interviews of David Zaslav because this is the content I cover, on my channel. So it's like I was just, taking it as much as possible. And he was very energetic, coming into this. Someone, Zaslav is someone who did lower budget, unscripted programming, Discovery. He built up quite a suite of networks there, right? He has Oprah on board. I think I give anyone credit if you got Oprah to sign away something, right? So it's like he is a real businessman from what I hear that people, that talk about him. He takes no crap with people. He goes for the throat. So just as far as these money people, the stocks people in Wall Street, they're already saying that this is part of the big 3 now. HBO Max, whatever this is going to be, it's already up there now with Netflix and Disney Plus, just off the potential. So they've leapfrogged everyone with this move. Now everyone else has to start grouping up, like Paramount Plus, who I always shit on them because I don't like Star Trek. But it's like they have to step up now and group up to catch up with what WarnerMedia just did. So very smart move. Putting in 20 billion, at least 20 billion a year in content, I think is major that Zaslav was talking about. Like you mentioned, Netflix, are doing like 17 billion a year. And they're, that's kind of like the standard. Disney Plus is probably like $1 million or $2 million behind them. So they come to play ball. So it was exciting to hear, like I said, Zaslav talk about that. Hopefully, he really follows through. And he said he's even prepared to spend more than 20 billion a year. Yeah, so he's talking big. He's talking a big game, and he keeps mentioning Superman and Batman every time he talks. So I'm like, hey, just give us what we want, and I'm excited to see what he does.
That's something I remember you were mentioning on your channel was all of these smaller streaming services need to start picking a team because, as you said, it's over. It's 3 companies now. It's 3 streaming services.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's definitely, and this is what the stock market is saying, that this is big 3 now. The race is over. So, like you got the Peacock. I think I heard Amazon. See, so Amazon's an outlier. Amazon, because they say they have 200 million subscribers, but you don't know if all of them are watching Prime Video. Right. I got Amazon Prime, for the shipping, when I first got it, right? So they're an outlier. They're great. I love Amazon, Invincible, all this stuff. Everything's great on there, right? But the story is Amazon wants to buy MGM, which has James Bond content, right? So everyone has to start grouping up. Like I said, Paramount Plus would be very smart. Not to group up with each other. They need to pick a team of the or go to Amazon. That's it.
Gotcha. Yeah, it's there's going to be some huge changes. I think in 2021 we'll probably start seeing a lot of it, and that's when this merger is supposed to start taking place, right? Middle of next year.
Yeah, 2022. Yeah, middle of
Or
next year, it should all close.
And what do you think this means for the current regime at Warner Brothers? Have we heard of? I know we know that Toby was trying to find another gig, but do you think that the higher ups, the more expensive, I don't know what you want to call them, but positions are probably going to be the ones to go as Discovery puts in their own people?
Yeah, that was the first thing I looked at. Like, there are some quotes out there or some stories saying that, hey, Zaslav, he's going to bring in his team, right? He's going to bring in his business execs, maybe some of his content people. So I think it's going to affect the streaming side first. I think that's the main part that this is going to affect. Now, does Zaslav have a exec in mind that can run a film studio? If he does, then Toby's done. If he has someone that can do Toby's job, because the word is that all the major exec positions, it's up in the air. Because Zaslav may have an old friend that used to run a studio, and now he has this big gig. Now he's going to bring his friend in there. That's how this goes. So it's about who you know. So streaming side, I say Cernoff has the most to be worried about because she is currently the chairman of WarnerMedia. Keelar was going to be demoted. I think everyone was going to be demoted one way or the other. So Keelar saw the writing on the wall because he didn't know about the merger until it was announced. So he knew what that meant for him, that he was demoted. Mm-hmm. So he's leaving. I think Sarnoff will be next. Toby is still a question mark. He's such a squirmy guy. He finds a way to survive. It's like this guy, man. He's part of the old regime, that got rid of the Snyder Cut, right? They tried to bury it. He's the last man standing, and he just finds a way to survive in this industry. It's crazy. So it remains to be seen. Hopefully Zaslav has an old buddy that can run a film studio.
So I know we talk about Sarnoff and Hamada. Do you think if Toby goes, that means that'll be a good thing for restoring the Snyderverse for that future?
Well, yeah, I mean, I still have hopes that it's going to happen regardless on the streaming side. There's still people that tell me that I know that they're saying that, they're really thinking that there's a theatrical chance for the Snyderverse. With Toby there, I still can't wrap my mind around that it can happen with him in that building, right? So if he's gone, I say, if we find out like within this next week that Toby's gone, I'm going to be like, I guarantee the Snyderverse is back, if he's gone. But if he remains, I still think streaming side, because of the money that Zaslav is talking about putting into the company for content, there's no way that he sees those numbers of the Snyder Cut, and we know they're there, right? We know that it's a hit worldwide. There's no way that he looks at that, and he talks about DC IP all the time. You got to do more Snyderverse, at least streaming. Right. But Toby, he's in the way for the theatrical, so that's we'll see what happens.
Do you think that that's why they haven't been as public or haven't been doing victory laps around the Snyder Cut and have instead focused on Godzilla vs. Kong and Mortal Kombat, Wonder Woman 1984? Do you think it's because of Toby?
Oh, yeah. Toby, and really it's that the whole regime. It's Toby, it's Sarnoff, it's Hamada, and in a way, Keelar allowed that to happen. I know people have sentiments for Keelar, and it's like, I get it. He was, tweeting. He shared some of my retweets. I thought we were friends, but he allowed all this stuff happen on his watch. The Snyderverse or the Snyder Cut not being mentioned was on his watch, so that kind of falls at his feet. So, but I think, a lot of that had to do with Toby. He blocked Robert Meyer Burnett, if people don't know. He put out the story that Emmerich blocked the series idea that Zach was talking about doing last DC Fandom. He wanted to do 4 episodes for the Snyder Cut. And Toby did not want to redo the contracts. Now, people could say on the business side, it just, that's probably smart business. No, he knew what Zach wanted to do since November of 2019 for the Snyder Cut, right? So he decided to be, a dickhead and block it. and that's so yes, he's still an impediment to the Snyder verse, and I think that's why we didn't hear about those numbers this whole time.
That's the first I've heard about, because there's been a lot of confusion over whether he intended it to be a series, or at least released as a series, or as a film. And then as soon as it got announced to be released as a film, people were saying that that's what Zack wanted the whole time. Can you give us some clarity on exactly what happened and what Zack really wanted to do with Zack Snyder's Justice League?
Well, yeah, I love when people they tell us what Zack was thinking, right?
Right.
I love social media, but I only can go by the official word, and also insiders, which Robert Meyer Burnett had one insider that talked about it too, among others. But originally, when Zack pitched this idea to AT&T, he went to that regime, and they were talking about streaming, like obviously from the beginning. And Zack pitched them the idea of episodes in November of 2019. That's on record. Zack admitted that. The John Stankey, I think the former AT&T CEO, I think Stevenson, before Stankey came in. The whole point, they went on record saying, yeah, Zack pitched us the idea of a series. So I'm going to go off of that, from the beginning. And then once it was announced, May 2020, everything was on board. We get to DC Fandom. Zack is still talking about series. He said it, point blank to the world. We was there eating it up. He said 4 episodes. There was a regime change in WarnerMedia around that same time. Ann Cernoff came into the building. All of a sudden, the series idea, was dead by the end of the summer of 2020. So once Robert Meyer Burnett came out with that information that Emmerich blocked that idea, it all kind of lines up that Zack wanted a series for weekly buzz. I heard the example Zack used to AT&T, the brass at AT&T, was a Mandalorian weekly hype, Snyder Cut cliffhangers, and so that was actually his idea for the Snyder Cut. And then once that was blocked, then Zack kind of made the most of it, and gave us a full movie, which is my favorite Zack Snyder movie, because I have not seen Army of the Dead yet. I'm actually want to see it this week before it hits Netflix. But so once he gave us the film, Zack actually tried to do a theatrical version of the Snyder Cut, putting in the intermission that I'm sure you heard of, that he tried to put in the intermission for theaters. Toby blocked that idea as well with theaters. So it's Toby Emmerich's fault the whole time. And Zack wanted a series. He had to kind of adjust and make the best of it.
Do you think that would have affected the content of the Snyder Cut? The additional photography, would that have changed what we would have seen? Like, let's say it released as a 4-episode series, and then you put it all into one long, 4-hour project. Do you think that the content would have been different had they agreed to do a series instead?
That's a good question, because I know by the time Zack went into additional photography, I think that was October of 2020. By that time, he knew the series idea was dead. Mm-hmm. So I think if the series was still on the table, that additional photography would have went a little different. Once they kind of got on set, and then Zack always intended this to be watched all the way through. I just think he would have had a few more, cliffhanger moments. But I still think he executed that well. Just watching the 4-hour film in the 6-7 chapters that it has right now, he kind of has those moments where it is a little, I wouldn't say cliffhanger, but like you can feel like it's the end of an episode. Mm-hmm. Like when Cyborg comes down with the mother box. He's like, Steppenwolf doesn't have the mother box. I have the mother box, right? So that's a good fade out moment. I don't think it would have affected the total product that much. But I think Zack had some ideas to kind of, spice up, 4 episodes and just have like weekly hype. Like imagine the hype, we would be talking about the Snyder Cut and the cliffhanger, and then we're waiting for next week. So he had grand plans. I still think he'll have a chance to do something like that too, by the way. But I don't think it affected the total movie that much, though.
Gotcha. Yeah, that was one of the things that I had mentioned here on the show was when it was a series idea, I'm like, you put this thing out in the middle of the month and set it out as I think it was 6 episodes. I forgot how many episodes he said. It might have been 4, but you put this out in the middle of the month so that it leaks into a second month of subscribers. So you're guaranteed at least 2 months of subscriptions from people that can't wait, to watch them all. And that would have been the smart idea instead of releasing it all in 1 month, having people drop out as soon as they've seen the Snyder Cut and moved on. So that's kind of what I thought was the idea of, let's try to at least get 2 months out of subscribers that want to see this.
Yeah, and you figure if you're there to make money, that's what you would do. That's why having David Zaslav come in, I think, is, like I said, a breath of fresh air, because those are those moments where there's something personal going on and you're forgetting about the business. It's like Toby, like, we're trying to make money, right? So I thought it was a no-brainer to have your own Mandalorian moment. And hey, let's go ahead and do, a couple weeks of hype on social media. Everyone's going to be writing about it every week. It still was a big event, but just imagine they could have stretched that out, like you said, over the course of, basically 2 months in a sense.
I've never seen a company dislike money more than Warner Brothers, WarnerMedia. It's incredible to me just how much, and all the weird things they do. Like, even like, let's bring this all down to the comic book side. It seemed like they were fading away from print, or I don't know what they were trying to do, but they got rid of these physical catalogs that my readers used to use. And I talked about this last week. They used to use those catalogs to pre-order their new books, and they got rid of them. And they're like, we have a digital version now. And that affected their sales like crazy. And it's just like every aspect of this company, and especially now with the Snyderverse, where it's like, we're ready to pay to give you, we want more of this content, take our money, please. And they're like, no, we're good. Here, have Shazam 2 instead. Here's Blue Beetle.
And that's why this Discovery merger this is the shakeup we needed. So let's, Zaslav talks a big game. He's talking money. So if he's really about that, and it's interesting, some of the pictures they've been putting out of this merger, they're saying part of the hits that HBO Max had, was Zack Snyder's Justice League. So it's kind of out there in the open, and I'm sure Zaslav sees, he loves all these different IPs, Game of Thrones, all this stuff he's been talking about. So it's a no-brainer, like I said, to do more Snyderverse. I think, like I said, the only question is it theaters or is it streaming? If you want to make money, the Snyder Cut had to have made money, for them. So.
It sounds like you and I are very positive, and we see an upside on this, especially. Where do you blame people that are like, yeah, this is another hashtag I believe in Hamada moment? Like, a lot of people that are they've been burned, and we've been, as a fandom, we've been abused like crazy over the years, burned multiple times. Do you blame some of the fandom that are like, I'll just wait and see because I'm not gonna get my hopes up?
Yeah, no, I don't blame him. Like, it's funny you reminded me of these campaigns for Hamada and Sarnov, which really backfired on the fans. So I get it. Like, we've been burned, for 4 years, and so it's like this new guy comes in here. Like, is he really gonna, restore the Snyderverse? So it is a wait and see thing. I prefer to look at more of the business side of it and just say, like, hey, at least we have the Snyder Cut out now where they can point to it and look at it and say, this was a smash hit, in 2021. So at least we have that going for us now, where it's just a logical thing now to say, let's follow up this hit instead of, let's release this movie you say that doesn't exist. So I think, like Zach said, it's actually, it was a harder fight to get the Snyder Cut release. As opposed to getting a sequel. So
gotcha.
I want to, anchor towards that, and we'll see what Zaslav does. He has to fire some people first, probably.
Yeah, there's a lot of pieces that need to go into place before we get, I think, some announcements on projects. If they end up restoring the Snyderverse, or we get a sequel or 2 sequels, when do you think we'll get that announcement at the earliest? When do you think we'll get a slate announcement?
Mm-hmm. Well, so I will go off of there's some insiders that I know, right? So it's like, we'll see how their words land. But as far as like this year DC fandom, I'm not expecting any major like Snyderverse announcements at DC fandom. I am expecting just something to do with the Snyderverse, like let's say some spin-off projects, like a Bat Flag or something with Deathstroke. I think they have to give us some kind of indication this year that they're planning just some, even if it's lower budget, that's fine, but something within that world, DC fandom. But I'm being told that, and people are totally expecting that next year we'll find out something about Zach doing, an actual sequel, for the Snyder Cut itself, for the Zack Snyder's Justice League. So we may have to wait till next year for the Zack directed part of this. His world, I totally expect something within his world to be addressed at this DC fandom.
That would be great. A Batfleck series, something involving Deathstroke too. There's been a lot of hype from the fandom, or from the fandom especially, to try to get that to come out in some form. One of the things that I was kind of worried about, and I don't know if this is maybe just peanuts to Discovery or David or whatever, but next year when this all takes effect, people were wondering if that means that the comics division is going to be shut down, because whether David could handle this in one of two ways, kind of like AT&T did, of either the comic printing side is either too small of an aspect in this new company to worry about, so let it run, and if it's profitable, great. Or they might look at it as, why is this still here? Why don't we cut that and instead focus those writers on other things? Have you heard anything from the comic side, or do you have any predictions on whether they'll just let that keep running?
Well, I constantly hear, as far as with the comic side, is that this new company, right now, WarnerMedia, they have always they'd rather someone else do the comic book publishing. They don't want to be in the publishing business. They want to keep the IPs. Mm-hmm. Zaslav always talked about these IPs. They're not going to sell the rights, to all these characters, but they rather someone handle the publishing. So I still think that that's something that they're going to look into, especially after this merger, to, just find someone to do the publishing, to do the writing. Like, they can create new characters, whatever, and then Zaslav can say, well, we like that new character, we're going to use that, we have the rights to all this stuff, mm-hmm. But y'all take care of that. So I still think a deal is waiting to happen where they kind of, in a sense, unload the comic book publishing side. I don't think they'll totally, exit. There's no way you could just stop doing comics. I don't see that, but yeah, they'd rather someone else do it.
Yeah, that's been kind of the rumor for ever since they got rid of Dan DiDio, who was very close contact with the head of the company I work for, and was truly a man that liked comic shops and had comic shops in mind when he was getting these books out and getting these stories out in these directions of, we need to inspire the future movies and the future films, and not the other way around. He didn't say Disney explicitly, but that's who he was referring to, where Disney will say, oh, we have a Moon Knight show that we're working on, so start working on a Moon Knight comic that we're coming out. So that's what they let the shows dictate the comics, as opposed to the other way around. But ever since the deal got out, the line has gotten cut in half, which we definitely needed less titles, and I think all companies need less titles. So I was personally okay with this, and I'm seeing now that the readership, instead of dropping off from DC, they're picking up titles that they normally wouldn't have. So that's been a nice surprise. But I don't know if that was the expectation for AT&T, or if it's going to be how they want to handle things. But it's interesting to hear from you as well, that rumor, or that they want someone like IDW to instead, hey, you want a line of Batman kids comics? We know you're good at that. Go ahead and do it. And we know they're friendly with IDW, Dark Horse, Dynamite. So people saying that it's going to be a Marvel handled thing, I don't see that happening. I think it's going to be more like Boom Studios, for example, or even Image Comics. Although I think Image has their own their own IPs that they want to work on anyway. But I guess we'll see what happens in the next couple of years. And I personally don't want to see that line of DC go, because I mainly read DC and indie right now. But whatever AT&T and Discovery wants to do, I guess they're there to make money, unlike what WarnerMedia was doing.
Yeah, exactly. They're there to make money, and like I said, they're going to use all these assets. I think Zaslav is going to be pretty shrewd with his business and get to the point. So, hopefully, as I said, the new name of this company should come out within the next week. So that'll get the ball rolling.
You mentioned you hadn't seen Army of the Dead yet, right?
Right, I have not.
Okay, so we're originally going to do like a spoiler-free discussion about the film, but we'll push that for another one of the co-hosts in the next couple of weeks. I know Paul Kelly and I will be doing a spoiler review of Army of the Dead. She will be coming back to do that special episode, so longtime Brokehead Core members can celebrate in that return. But otherwise, we'll do a regular co-hosts next week and maybe a spoiler-free discussion then. Was there anything else on the merger that you wanted to discuss before we close out this week's episode?
Yeah, really just, as like I said, I think it's a smart business move. And like I said, I'm just looking forward to these shakeups. I think that's the next, you're going to see a lot of spin. There was a lot of people who are, pro old regime, trying to make this merger look like a bad thing. But like I said, the business side of it, I think, is great. And now it's just about the consumer side. It's like, are they going to give us what we want? Because we're there ready to give them our money. So let's see what they do. So I'm just excited to see what happens.
That was another thing that I was joking about of, I'm pro Discovery. I've always loved Discovery. I'm playing the politics game of, I love Ghost Adventures and Frozen Planet.
I almost signed up for Discovery, actually. I actually looked at it, and there was like a free trial for a week. I was like, I'm not that serious about it. Not yet.
Right, especially if they end up folding everything like you said, then you're stuck with two bills for the time being. That's amazing. Yeah, I hope it's a good thing for everyone, especially people that love these characters, love DC, and as you said, I expect the heads to roll too, and I can't wait to hear you talk about it on your channel. I know you will be covering it right away whenever positions change or people lose their jobs during this merger, and let the Brokehead Core know again where they can find these weekly live streams.
Yeah, definitely. You can find me on YouTube, SYLABDUL Inc. You can find that on YouTube and on Twitch. I'm doing Twitch streams as well. Also, that's the same handle I use on Twitter if you have social media for Twitter. I'm also launching, you mentioned the SYLABDUL.com. That is a functional website. It's kind of a placeholder right now, but it has all of my social media links on SYLABDUL.com. And also we have a second channel, SYLABDUL.com, where I kind of branch out and talk a little Star Wars and stuff like that more. So I try to hit from both angles there.
There will be a link on everywhere you can find Syl in the description of the show notes today. So in case you're driving, come back to the episode, go to the description. You will find all those links down below. Syl, I want to give you a huge thanks for coming on the show and helping out with this merger. The timing ended up being perfect for this one, especially because your insight on this merger and on what's been happening over at WarnerMedia and AT&T is huge to me, especially. So I really appreciate it.
Appreciate that. Yeah, it was a long time coming. Like you said, it lined up perfectly.
It really did. And the Brokehead Core, I want to thank you as well for joining again this week. Reminder that if you head on over to thereasonsimbroke.com, we just put up new merch designs. If you go to thereasonsimbroke.com, click on merch, and you will find masks, although some states are lifting that, but you got t-shirts, mugs, things that you use every day regardless, and all of that goes right back into the store. Otherwise, you can also find the link on everywhere you can find us at thereasonsimbroke.com. So, Syl, thank you so much again for coming on the show. Depending on what happens over the next year or two, I'd love to have you back on. This was an absolute pleasure.
Definitely. Yeah, we'll definitely have to do this again sooner rather than later. Yeah.
Yes. Absolutely. And Brokehead Core, thank you again for tuning in. I've been Daniel, and all will be well. You had mentioned that the Batman the Animated Series is a staple in your DC fandom. You got to have Paul Dini come back too, right? There's no way Bruce Timm doesn't bring on Paul Dini, Alan Burnett, and the old guys that are still around to work on Batman the Animated Series. That's something that Kelly and I were always saying. Like, even Kevin Conroy aside, there's still a couple of people alive that worked on that show that we need to just let them until they're like no retirement, just until the end of their lifetime. Have them work on the animated series while they still can.
Yeah, I was surprised I didn't see any of those names, with Bruce Timm in the announcement. So, yeah, that's the shaky part of this. It's like you got Bruce Timm. It's like, okay, but all these other guys that I don't want to be attached to this is a little, little nerve wracking.
Do you think we'll get an animated series season 4, or is this that Bruce Timm animated series project that they were talking about?
I'm kind of thinking this was it. Like, there were rumors of, like you said, I heard at one time I heard a continuation, of the animated series, the classic animated series. So, like you said, the season 4, basically. And I assume Bruce Timm would be a part of it. For this to come out and be announced, I have a feeling that this is the one. This is it. It's not necessarily season 4. It's like, there's mixed feelings. There's a lot of mixed feelings for a DC fan right now.
Yeah, it's one of the things. If it had been season 4, I know they did like a Batgirl replacement with Tara Strong instead in season 3, which I had a huge problem with. But if they did a season 4, I would not want recasting, especially Alfred, like the lady from Zemblis Jr. I'd be like, just write him out of the show. Like, oh, Alfred is, like Kelly used to say, he's in Cambodia, he's on vacation, he's over there somewhere. Like, just write out all the Commissioner Gordon, same thing. Like, oh no, he's over in Central City now.
We would accept that. We would definitely.
Yeah, we would.
It's such a class. Listen, the animated series, I still watch that probably once a week. Still, it's on HBO Max now. Yeah, so it's like it's sacred to me.